Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And it is time to continue our book club podcast of Phoenix on the Sword. Today we're continuing with chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 2 is essentially a conversation between Prospero and Conan, and it's rather interesting. Prospero here, contrary to his magician roots in Shakespeare's story, is now a warrior. And in chapter 3, we get basically a conversation between Phaethon and Dion. Dion being a smarter version of the third monarch of Doriath, but still not very bright. Chapter 2, though, starts with a lovely little poem. When I was a fighting man, the kettle drums they beat. The people scattered gold dust before my horse's feet. But now I am a great king. The people hound my track. With poison in my wine cup and daggers at my back. The road of kings. That's kind of more reminiscent in some ways of the Roman emperors, I find, than actual kings. Unless they were usurpers, and even some usurpers were generally greeted well by the populace. You look at Hugues Capet of France, he was treated and received fairly warmly by his people. Though we get the names Namidides, who was Conan's predecessor, Publius and Prospero, who are servants of Conan. Conan was originally well loved by the people when he was general. He was regarded as essentially a triumphant, popular hero. But when he became king, the people came to despise him because of Rinaldo's songs, which worship his predecessor, which is rather almost humorous. But the people have come to revere Namidides, and for example, we get the example that fathers who lost their sons are now saying, well, it was worth it. Poor Namidides, he was a good king. Who cares about my son? Essentially. And that they're regretting ever losing their tyrannical, greedy, self-centered monarch. We find out that King Numa is king of Numidia. He'll appear in a later story. Prospero, Publius, they're amongst the only ones who are loyal to Conan. So you have the, I want to say imperial court, but more royal court, which is loyal towards Conan. They feel that their interests are best served by a strong Aquilonia, and that the best possible champion for this cause is Conan. While the people are being whipped up into a frenzy of stupidity by Rinaldo, on the other hand, you do have some of the people who are for Conan, but they're dwarfed by the idiots. And there are nobles who resent Conan, as we'll see in the upcoming short stories and whatnot. But the trouble is that Rinaldo's got some members of the nobility, some of the mercantile class, and some of the peasants whipped up into a frenzy with his songs, like his Lament of Kings. Conan senses danger. This is something that he comments on to himself, that he's always got the sense that somebody's gonna come after him. We also find out that there is an artistic side to Conan. He's drawing maps himself. He apparently is a fan of cartography, and he's enjoying drawing maps of the far distant northern borders and lands and regions. You know, these are little more than a curiosity to some like Prospero, who just ask him, what's it like up there? And he just tells him, you know, and he says, like, the men there, I kind of like them. We find out that they worship a god called Ymir, who's actually named after the frost giant, whom was killed in Norse mythology to form the world. And Ymir was slain by Odin, Vili, and Ve. Conan, though, assigns Prospero the task of going to Numidia and teases him about kissing Numa's harem girls, because Prospero's a young man and Conan probably feels bemused by this young man's youth. Although, that being said, he does express that part of him wishes he can convert to the Norse faith because he likes the idea of Valhalla. On the other hand, he worships Crom, who's a gloomy god. That's his words, not mine. And that he sends more dooms and whatnot than any rewards or anything. What was your thoughts on chapter 2?
I thought a lot about how Conan thinks, how he is irritated by the fact that there are many that are disloyal after everything he's done for them.
The ingratitude is what gets to him.
Yeah, and how he realizes he cannot attack Rinaldo directly.
Nor does he want to, because he knows it'd be a stupid move. Can't go after the poet. That said, it's a commentary, I think, on how people have short-term memories. The tyrants of yesteryear are the champions of this year. I've seen people try to justify emperors like Honorius, the emperor who was more worried for his chicken than the city of Rome. I've actually read monographs where people go above and beyond the call of duty to defend that emperor when he was terrible. I've seen people try to justify the atrocities of Justinian when they were many and plenty, but the thing here is it works in reverse. Now, on the other hand, I've seen people go from praising Scipio Africanus in previous generations to insulting him and saying he was terrible and he sucked and ta-ta-ta. It's shocking to see people hate on Scipio Africanus when he was essentially a Washington in some ways of ancient Rome. He achieved supreme power and then gave it back. He did everything he could for his state. He was better than Hannibal in war and politics. He was way better than Hannibal Barca at war. He conquered him. But nowadays, people don't want to acknowledge those victories and say, no, Hannibal was better. Why? Because he's the loser. He lost at Zama. That makes him better. Now, if you lose the battle, especially when Africanus used Hannibal's own tactics against him, and Conan's bemoaning that, I think. Just going, the fact is, the previous guy was basically Caligula. I slew him to liberate the country. And the country thanks me by hating me. All because one jack donkey, I'm trying to be careful with my words, is going around screaming about how horrible I am. Conan hasn't butchered people. He's generally a good monarch. And we actually see him running the administration himself, mostly because he doesn't trust anyone else to run it. But he's running it himself when he longs for a good battle or he longs for women. He's instead setting himself to work on his 8 to 12 hour shift of paperwork. And for someone like him, that's mind-blowingly boring. But he's doing it. It shows he has a strong sense of responsibility and duty to these people, whom he does love. So I just think we need to bear in mind that this is the kind of figure and image that the Aquilonians aren't seeing. They're only seeing the figure painted by Ronaldo. So it's very fascinating. It's very tragic nonetheless. Although the people of Aquilonia will in time come to appreciate Conan after they're subject to, I think, 2 civil wars with 2-3 foreign nations coming in to slaughter their people needlessly. They then go, you know what, Conan's better. They come to appreciate him. But that's a few stories down the road. Once again, chapter 3 starts with a poem. And we've got Fafamon honestly begging for an alliance because he doesn't have his one ring to rule them all. But he's trying to ally himself with Dion, who completely ignores him. Then Dion doesn't even remember what he was saying. It's like, oh, yes, Southern Stygian magic. Oh, right, I've got this little bauble that I should put on. Maybe I like good luck charms. And you have Fafamon who flies into a rage going, seriously? I've been telling you how you could stay ahead of your political rivals who drag you into a conspiracy. I'm offering to keep you alive. I'm offering to give you political advice and military advice to stay ahead of the game. And you can't be bothered enough to even listen to me because I'm a slave. Fafamon then ends up killing him for the ring. It's a bit funny how Dion's little new age knick-knack that's supposed to bestow good luck is actually the one ring of Fafamon. And so Fafamon kills him, enslaves a demon, and reclaims his one's powers. I know I shouldn't consider this chapter a comedy, but I find it one of the funniest pieces of fantasy literature I've ever read. What do you think of it? It's just so funny seeing Fafamon like, I was once a Dark Lord, for all intents and purposes. I have Dion. Oh, right! I should see to this. He's not even paying attention to the guy.
He's empty-headed.
He doesn't care.
He had the opportunity.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I got a ring from Stygia.
Well, he doesn't say this is this it.
It's essentially the mentality.
Only for it to be Fafamon's. What are the odds of that? Pretty darn good considering. And Fafamon reclaims his once glory. Honestly, this is not a depiction the Marvel Comics later really uphold. The semi-clumsy former slave who's almost a mockery of a Dark Lord. I like Fafamon, but let's be honest, he's satirical here. I just love that. So yeah, I really enjoyed these 2 chapters. There's a lot of exposition with Howard. Honestly, he's got a reputation for all his stories being action-based, when in some ways they're as dialogue-heavy as Tolkien's work. And I actually think that's a good thing. The intelligence, the drama, as well as the awesomeness of Conan's character, but also the humor Howard approaches this story and this character with. It's like, yeah, my character's this big badass who's so cool, so powerful, but he's at times a total moron. You know, like everybody's a moron, but everybody has their moments of genius. But next chapter, we'll be getting to the action and the actual assassination attempt, which is actually really cool and really awesome, and it's really well written. Honestly, this is the 2nd most popular Conan story of all times for a reason. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button, like your Cull smashing the stone law tablets of Volusia to pieces.